Teacher talking sports, what it does, what it do, how we live. And last off season, we did NFL Mount Rushmores by team, the four best players in franchise history. Well, this off season, we are now doing NFL Mount Rushmores by position. Monday, I did quarterback. Tuesday, I did running backs. Today, we are going to look at wide receivers. So, I am going to attempt to name the four best wide receivers in NFL history. As a subjective list, let me know in the comments who you would include. This was a rather challenging one. I actually switched my fourth guy last night, and but I will name a bunch of honorable mentions at the end, and I'll mention who I switched out. But let's get into it. My NFL Mount Rushmore of wide receivers. Players are named in alphabetical order by last name. They are not ranked. Starting with a guy I didn't originally have on, but decided to include. That is Lance Alworth. Alworth was selected in the ninth overall pick in the 1962 AFL Draft, inducted in the Hall of Fame in 1978. He played 9 seasons with the Chargers, 2 with the Cowboys to end his career. In 136 career games, Alworth had 542 catches for 10,266 yards, averaged 18.9 yards a catch, and had 85 receiving touchdowns. Also added 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground. Alworth was named to 7 Pro Bowls in his career, 7 straight seasons from 1963 to 69, 6 straight first-team All-Pros from 1963 to 68. He was the AFL Player of the Year in 1963. Also had finishes of second twice, third twice, and fifth in his career. Alworth from 1963 to 1969. In that 7-year span, was clearly the best receiver in the game. Totaled over 1,000 yards each season, 3 times leading the league in receiving yards, 3 times leading the league in receptions, 3 times leading the league in receiving touchdowns. He won an AFL championship with the Chargers in 1963. While they didn't have as big a role, he was still a vital part of the Dallas Cowboys team that won the Super Bowl in 1971. In 3 of his first 4 seasons, Alworth averaged over 20 yards a reception. Just put up, some incredible numbers for his time playing. Lance Alworth, the first member of the wide receivers Mount Rushmore. This one, let's go even further back to Don Hutson. Hudson was inducted in the Hall of Fame in 1963. It didn't help his standing being on here, but he played all around. He actually had 30 interceptions in his career, but again, that didn't affect whether he made it or not because he did outstanding. Just like Alworth, put up amazing numbers for his era. Playing 11 seasons for the Packers, totaling 488 receptions, 7,991 yards, and 99 touchdowns. So again, we'll see current receivers putting up better numbers than those, but for the era, absolutely incredible. So in his 11 seasons, Hudson led the NFL in receptions 8 times, receiving yards 7 times, and touchdowns 9 times. Incredible. Did have a season where he went over 1,000 yards, 1942. Even though he was playing in a NFL that had just 12 game seasons for his career. He averaged 68.9 yards receiving per game. Again, historic for his era. He was named to 8 first-team All-Pros in 8 straight seasons, his last 8 seasons of his career, from 1938 to 1945. In NFL history, he still ranks 11th all-time with his 99 receiving touchdowns. Hudson was a part of 3 NFL championship teams pre-Super Bowl, 1936, 1939, and 1944 seasons. Don Hudson, the second member of the receivers Mount Rushmore. Next, let's go with the most current of the 4. Inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2018, 21st overall pick in 1998. That being Randy Moss. What a career it was for Moss. Played from 1998 to 2012. All in all, Moss in 218 games totaled 982 receptions for 15,292 yards and 156 receiving touchdowns. Just a threat pretty much every time the Vikings had the ball. There was a decent chance he would score, as he did often for the first 6 straight seasons of his career. He had at least 1,233 receiving yards, 10 seasons in total in which he went over 1,000 receiving yards. In 2007, with the Patriots, he scored 23 receiving touchdowns, which is an NFL record. That season, he finished as runner-up for Offensive Player of the Year. Also had Offensive Player of the Year finishes at 3rd and 5th, was Offensive Rookie of the Year in 1998 when he had 1,313 receiving yards for 17 receiving touchdowns. He had 9 seasons in which he reached double digits in receiving touchdowns. Moss was named to 6 Pro Bowls, was a 4-time first-team All-Pro in NFL history. Moss ranks 15th in career receptions, 4th in receiving yards, and 2nd in receiving touchdowns. Randy Moss, just one of the all-time great threats at the wide receiver position. The 3rd member of the wide receivers Mount Rushmore. Pretty sure you know who we're ending with. The great Jerry Rice, selected 16th overall in the 1985 NFL Draft. Inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2010. Rice played 20 seasons in the NFL from 1985 to 2004, totaling 1,549 receptions, 22,895 receiving yards, 197 receiving touchdowns, 3 records. Also had 10 rushing touchdowns in his career. But the receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns are easily records in NFL history. Rice led the league in receptions twice, receiving yards 6 times, and receiving touchdowns 6 times. Was the Offensive Player of the Year in 1987 and 1993. Twice finished as the runner-up for MVP. Also had MVP finishes of 3rd twice, 6th, and 7th in his career. Jerry Rice was named to 13 Pro Bowls, a 10-time first-team All-Pro. Won 3 Super Bowls with the 49ers. The Super Bowl 23 MVP. 151 receptions for 2,245 receiving yards and 22 touchdowns in 29 career playoff games. It's just going to be hard to imagine someone sustaining the levels of success that Rice did and having a chance to topple his records. Jerry Rice, the 4th member of the wide receivers Mount Rushmore. So again, alphabetical order by last name. We have Lance Allworth, Don Hudson, Randy Moss, and Jerry Rice. So as I mentioned, I didn't originally have Allworth on. I took him off. I put him on and took off Steve Largent. So Largent retired with pretty much most of the records. The reason I went Allworth was a 6-time first-team All-Pro, albeit at the AFL. And Steve Largent only made 1 first-team All-Pro. So I gave a slight edge to Allworth, but it was really tight. Other honorable mentions include Terrell Owens, Julio Jones, Don Maynard, Marvin Harrison, Chris Carter, Calvin Johnson, Tim Brown, Michael Irving, Raymond Berry, and Larry Fitzgerald. So there you have it, my wide receivers Mount Rushmore. I didn't even name a bunch of Hall of Famers. Lynn Swann, guys like that, Stallworth, Isaac Bruce, a bunch of Art Monk, guys in the Hall of Fame. So a bunch more audible mentions as well. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with my wide receivers Mount Rushmore? Who would you include on yours? Tomorrow we will take a look at the tight ends. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. Like the video, share the video, hit the bell for notifications. I'm out.